This is an intervention, a chance to sit down with friends around the campfire, chat about experiences, and discuss how scouting has made us who we are.
To explore the challenges volunteers face, answering questions on running a section and much more. Together we are learning from other people's experiences and bright new ideas. Welcome to the Scouters Anonymous podcast.
Hello listeners, welcome to the podcast's pilot episode. My name's Ollie, he's Michael, and we're two Explorer leaders originally from Birmingham, now on our own journeys through scouting.
We often find ourselves on the phone to each other, usually on a Wednesday evening after Explorers, discussing this week's challenges, ideas and successes. We thought sharing this enthusiasm would help others in their own journeys and hopefully inspire new young people and volunteers to join Scouts.
On future episodes, we will be joined by guests from across the country who have different experiences both in day-to-day scouting and behind the scenes. We hope these discussions will help us as much as you.
In today's episode, we discuss our own journey. So grab a cuppa, maybe a cheeky s'more, sit back and relax.
So initially, we wanted to briefly cover the roles that we've done as adults in scouting, just as a bit of context to the conversations that are to come. So I started off as a section assistant in Scouts, slowly took on more responsibilities and became an assistant section leader. I took over as Explorer section leader at the time and have continued in that section, going through different leadership changes. I've also been involved in the group trustee board, the district trustee board, and most recently and currently I am a group lead volunteer for my group. And I also have a few extra quirky support roles that aren't official, but I'm just sort of in the background supporting other units, other districts and other counties on larger scale events. And yourself, Michael?
So I started off as a section assistant in Cubs, doing a lot of the background stuff. And then I moved to the Scout section just before lockdown, and me and Ollie both out for that section all the way through lockdown and just afterwards. And then we both took on the Explorer section when the former Explorer leaders stepped down. I've also had other roles, so as part of that I was part of the group trustee board and also district. I've also helped at large scale events at other counties, helped with the units and groups. Currently now I've moved up north, I've opened my own section, so I'm team lead as well again, and I've started doing a lot more media roles, so I do media for district explorers, a couple of different groups and explorer units.
So I think quite a natural starting point is discussing sort of our journey as young people through scouting, and then how we moved on to becoming young leaders and adult leaders, and then obviously to where we are now. So I started in Beavers, went up through Cubs, into Scouts, eventually into Explorers. I left a little bit early in Explorers and then accidentally fell back into scouting as a young leader, just by bumping into my former scout leaders at a show at the NEC. They invited me back along, came and helped for 1 week and not escaped since. Still trying, but as they say, the really cheesy line, once a scout, always a scout.
Very true, very true. I started a similar position, started in Beavers with a primary school friend at that point. Worked all the way up till Scouts. Me and Ollie met in Cubs, but we didn't really start talking until Scouts necessarily.
It was mainly like once I come back as a young leader that we started talking properly.
Yeah.
Became sort of closer, and then obviously into being an adult and having to be sensible and grown up and having the responsibility of other people's young people to look after.
I think our main starting point of being a leader was through lockdown when we went onto Zoom. I think that's when we took a lot more responsibility. At this point we were scout leaders.
When I come back and started as a young leader, you were already there as a young leader within the scout section.
Yep.
I think you were helping in Cubs as well a little bit.
Yeah, so I started off officially as a Cub leader. Mainly doing a lot of the admin stuff in the background. That's how I learnt how to use OSM and stuff, which obviously I carried on through. But then I started helping more with Scouts just before lockdown, which is when I think you came back.
Yeah, I think I'd been there. Well, I sort of started my adult life in scouting just before lockdown. Obviously, we went into lockdown, which threw everything out and sort of having to completely learn new skills, both technologically wise, running a program online, as well as doing little, I suppose, care packages of little activity stuff that were dropped around, obviously COVID compliant, round to people's houses for them to take part in that week's activities. And we were getting more and more involved in Scouts. The assistant section leader, as it was called back then, stepped back into more of a section assistant role so that we could step up. And I think sort of the idea eventually was to try and lead us into that section leader role. And then obviously things took a turn. Unfortunately, our former Explorer leaders decided they were going to step away from Scouting altogether. And funnily enough, I was sat in a lecture at university and jokingly text Michael being like, "Oh, wouldn't it be funny if we took on the leadership of the Explorer unit?" And
Look what happened.
with Michael, you should never joke about stuff because it actually does happen.
Get things done. But yeah, going back to stuff over lockdown, I think that helped with confidence because it enabled us to test things out without being in front of all those people at once. I think it was a lot easier to sort of lead on a call. At least I found that, because you weren't necessarily in front of a crowd or you were just talking to your screen. So I think that helped with confidence a lot at the time.
I think it helped as well because at the start of lockdown and the start of sort of when we took over Explorers during lockdown, obviously we were having to get used to a lot of new faces over video call, which is not helpful. But we tried to integrate and get some of the parents involved. So because the people were at home calling in, it's very easy to involve the parents, which sort of made us relax a little bit more.
Yeah.
Came back into face-to-face scouting initially outside, the joys of having to measure out in meters how far away we were from each other and spray paint the grass to make sure we weren't gonna spread germs, and all the delightful risk assessments of COVID we took for granted actually.
But I think that also helped us learn how to write things like risk assessments because we had to do them so thoroughly then. I think then coming out of lockdown made it a lot easier. We were sort of thrown in the deep end of that respect. So now that whenever we write one, it's pretty straightforward.
I think it's interesting you say thrown in at the deep end. I definitely felt like that. We were a very young leader team, I think, when we took over. We were loosely supported by the Explorer leaders that we'd taken over from that attended quite a few meetings, to be fair, when we were online. So it was a support for us, just that they were on the call. They didn't really get involved or anything. We had some support from some other leaders in different sections. So obviously the Scout section that we were still helping at the same time at this point, which helped quite a bit. There's people put in place by district to support us at varying sort of levels of roles. Some of that was quite supportive as well. And then, yeah, we also had sort of a core team of Explorer leaders. It was obviously me and Michael. Also, next week's guest was part of the leadership team. As we go on to next week, we were sort of an average age of about 19, I think.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah, especially for Explorer leaders, bearing in mind the top age range of the Explorer section is 18. It's a very unique position to be put in, but I think it helped us quite a bit being able to understand where the Explorers were at, and the fact that certainly yourself and the person we've got on next week were sort of quite freshly out of our Explorers. Obviously, I'd had a bit of a gap where I'd left and then got dragged kicking and screaming back into scouting.
I think when we originally took on the unit, I think a lot of people thought we were too young, especially from group or just e-board at the time, who thought that we weren't capable.
Yeah, I think that's something that's sort of carried on, I would think, even as we've become older and taken on different roles. I think obviously experience is a massive thing in scouting, but actually new ideas, new ways of doing things is what scouting's about. And I know it's really cheesy to say, scouting is a movement. It is good to have young people in to help essentially move ideas and the way things are done. Obviously, it's very useful having that experience, knowing what works and what doesn't. But you've got to trust other volunteers, especially if they're new. You need to give them a bit of trust in actually finding their own way of doing things and letting you. It's a bit of an adventure learning how to do things. There's a lot of sort of invisible barriers that were put up that actually made it more difficult than what it needed to be, especially as we were quite brand new. At the time, the Explorer leaders used to sit on the exec committee, as it was called back then, which is completely new to us. Obviously, we'd sort of learned the leadership side of things from being in Scouts, but we were never exposed to that sort of side of Scouting and the politics side. I didn't think politics would be such a massive thing in Scouting. And I do love it a little bit, but
It's a love-hate relationship.
yeah, there's a lot of unique challenges, if we put it that way.
I think a benefit though of being a young leadership team, especially with Explorers, is there's a lot of challenges at that age, and I think because we are younger and I think more open-minded in that respect, I think that helps with that age range. But it also means we were more relatable to them. So challenges that they were facing at the time, we had only just come out of. So I think that was something that we could give back as well.
Sort of understand what people are going through, where maybe some leaders possibly wouldn't.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some leaders that are stuck in the old ways maybe and wouldn't understand some modern stuff. Whereas I think we were a lot more on board with the new way of scouting.
I think it's also important to recognise the fact that actually there are a lot of more mature leaders and very experienced leaders that are really open to changes.
Yep.
And embrace them and actively encourage new ideas. I think it's very easy to drop into that mindset of, oh, this leader's experience, and they're automatically going to say, well, you know, we've done it that way for 50 years and it's always worked and let's not change it. And I think we actually need to look at the positives of a varied leadership team, which I think certainly helped us at the start. Obviously, the core team was very young, but we did have support from people of different experiences, different age ranges, and luckily for us, all of them were very open-minded to the fact that
We were younger.
We hadn't done most of the things we were trying to do. As long as you do it safely, it is a little bit of trial and error. Like some of the stuff you do, you are going to screw up on. It isn't going to work. But in a way, you sort of need to learn that a little bit, as long as it's safe, which obviously everything we do is.
I mean, in a way, every idea was new at some point. So
Yeah, and I think people forget that. That's the problem.
yeah,
From sort of our experience, from not necessarily people within the leadership team of the group, but just further afield, it was quite difficult because, as you said before, it was these are new people. I think a little bit it was, we can get them to round the mindset of how we want them to be, and we can get them on our side and do stuff. And actually, I think maybe we were quite annoying because we were independent and we did stand up and we had a voice. We wanted the best for the young people. We didn't just want to go with the easy option. We wanted, right, what is achievable and what is going to be the best outcome, both one for our section and two for the young people, because I think a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, but there are some people out there that are in it for the wrong reasons. So just need to sort of refocus on what we're actually here for at the end of the day.
yeah, the bigger picture. I think we also came from a time of Explorers where the desk at the time was very hands-on and there was a lot of stuff going on. So then when we took it on, and a lot of these events had stopped because the desk had moved to London at the time, I think we came in with that fresh mindset, but also the mindset of trying to get a lot of this stuff back up and running, whether it be district, getting football competitions going, things like that, but also trying to to link up with other groups. I think other groups welcome that because it took the pressure off them as well as us. And I think a lot of units and unit leaders liked the fact that we were new. So I think within Explorers, I think we were welcomed. I think it was just the group at the time didn't.
I think as well, in our district specifically, were coming from the scout section. Everyone sort of knew each other in every group. You all knew the other group's scout leaders. I think initially when we went into Explorers, I think most of the other Explorer leaders knew each other, but there was nothing that brought them together. It was all the units are separate. We know what units meet where and when, and we know who the leaders are, but there was nothing bringing them together. And I think one of our big things was actually, one, we want to go around and just learn the leaders because we had no clue who they were.
Just meet everyone.
Yeah, and two was actually we wanted, a little bit selfishly, we really enjoyed the stuff that we did in Explorers that were district events, and we wanted to try and kickstart them. One, so that we would enjoy it as leaders with running it, and two, so that the Explorers around the district could have the same experiences we'd gone through. So I think quite a big thing to discuss is sort of our experiences going on to the trustee board, or at the time obviously it was called the executive committee. It was a unique experience for both of us. I sort of stayed on into the development into a trustee board, into a role that we'll sort of discuss later on. Obviously yourself, when it changed into a trustee board, the section leaders at the time then weren't on the board as part of the changes, and then obviously with your new role, you're not currently on the trustee board, so it's a past experience for yourself, but it's developed quite a bit for me. I think initially when we were on the trustee board, it was very eye-opening as to sort of the decisions that are made at that level and the discussions that go on. And actually, I think
it was the first realisation that Scouting could be quite political, but it also highlighted the fact that Explorers does a lot of things separately from group. So for people that don't know, most Explorers units have separate finances. They run things differently. They're not technically linked with the group. They're part of district, but that can also bring a lot of challenges. So obviously we have our own bank account. In our situation, had to pay rent to the group. So we had to pay so much per person per month. But that also came with a lot of discussion because we were part of a Sea Scout group. There was a lot of equipment involved, so there was a lot of discussion over usage of stuff, how much we should pay.
And a lot of it was discussions around finance and sort of the decision making and who was involved with the decision making. Because I think specifically from an Explorer unit point of view, obviously we're using the group's equipment a lot, especially the water equipment, and we want sort of future purchases and the maintenance of that equipment to have Explorers in mind, because that's part of sort of what we were paying. And there's a lot of difficult conversations we had to have at the time, but then obviously we had to buy our own equipment for certain things because we're separate. So it's a complete minefield, and whether you think Explorers should be part of a group or should be part of district, I mean, I have my own opinions about it, but we won't go into that. That's a decision for people that are paid a lot more money than a volunteer's paid. And for those of you that aren't involved in scouting, or parents, volunteers don't get paid anything. We give up more than 2 hours. It's just 2 hours a week though, by the way.
Apparently.
We give up many hours a week completely free, and obviously we don't want to be really big-headed, but I think people forget the sort of commitment of volunteers. Especially when they're doing all these sort of extra roles and supporting in the background.
Especially when things get over political or personal sometimes. I think other leaders can sometimes forget that we're volunteers at the end of the day, and we shouldn't be making our lives more difficult. We should be helping each other along the way.
I think we've had it, especially when we were first starting off, where actually stuff did cross over from scouts into personal lives. I know we would often go to meetings or just general scout nights, and actually we would end up having to have a few hours almost after each meeting or whatever just chatting about general stuff in life, just on a bit of a come down, let the adrenaline settle, because emotions do get quite high, especially when sort of people aren't approaching it in a very professional way, and you have to sort of not necessarily defend yourself, but you having discussions that you shouldn't have to be having. I think, especially with our group, in the past, sort of the key decision making roles haven't been very diverse in sort of the groups of people that hold them roles, or the experiences of the people that hold them roles, which obviously mean there's a lot of people that, when the decisions are made, vote the same way, or it's not sort of scrutinised properly or discussed properly, which I think was one of the worst things when we were sort of starting out.
Yeah.
Because we would stand up and we would try and scrutinise, and we would be the odd one out a little bit. Like, we're not just going with the flow of things. Actually, we don't mind what decisions made in the end, as long as we've had a fair discussion. And
Yeah. At the end of the day, you've got to hold each other accountable. And I think in some ways that brought us a bit of respect with the other leaders who maybe hadn't spoken up before, because they didn't necessarily have people to back their point. But I think the fact that we went in and wanted to challenge certain things that needed changing, and we weren't afraid to make ourselves known and make our point. And I think in the grand scheme of things, and in the end, it's worked out for the best.
we also had parent representatives as well that were very supportive of us and sort of helped made sure our voice was heard. And obviously they had unique views on different situations, which is always beneficial, I would say. And that definitely helped us quite a few times. I think, looking back on it, we did have quite a negative experience, I would say, from that. But actually, let's put a positive spin on it. I don't think we'd be as close as we are now if we hadn't have been through that.
No, I think...
And we also probably wouldn't be as close as we are to some of the other leaders within the group.
No.
If we hadn't have been through that, and we had to gain respect quite quickly again, because we were very young. I think that helped.
I think it enabled us to build a lot of confidence as well, and experience at the time.
This amazing podcast is sponsored by Wallywear Clothing. Looking to make your scout group stand out? At Wallywear Clothing, we bring creativity to life with personalised clothing, accessories and custom branding. Whether you already have a group logo or need a completely bespoke design, we can help create something unique that your scouts will wear with pride. From hoodies and t-shirts to accessories and branded merchandise, we make designs that help your group feel united, professional and unforgettable. And it's not just scouts, we also work with businesses to create high quality branded clothing and promotional items that leave a lasting impression. Find us on Instagram at wallywear.clothing and let's bring your vision to life. Terms and conditions apply. Looking amazing in Wallywear apparel is not guaranteed but highly probable. Side effects may include increased campfire confidence, excessive branding envy, and other scout groups asking where you got your cool hoodies. Wallywear accepts no responsibility for sudden popularity, legendary jamboree status, or leaders requesting merch at every event. Failure to look cool on camp may result in your tent being repossessed, your marshmallows being redistributed, and first refusal of the good camping spots being revoked. Bespoke designs may cause uncontrollable smiling, dramatic neckerchief flicking, and spontaneous chants of "this is brilliant." Please Wallywear responsibly.
Right, so I think we go on to talking how we ran the section. So at the time we were both section leaders sharing the role, which obviously came with its own challenges, but also pros. But I think we took on tasks based on what we were better at. I think that, and we found certain things worked better than others.
Yeah, I think the key decision making, we jointly decided what we were going to do. But I think that was very easy because I can't really remember a time where we disagreed on a decision.
No.
Which is quite unique because a lot of job sharing roles, there's some differences at least normally. But I think we were very much on the same wavelength for most of it. But yeah, as you say, we utilised each other's strengths. So myself did sort of a lot of the communication with parents and stuff, and the formalities at the start of meetings, having to sort of stand in front of the young people and explain what was going on, which led quite well, because I think whilst we're doing that, it meant you and sort of other people can start setting up what we were going to do then.
So yeah, so normally I'd do a lot more of the background stuff, mainly because we'd had an idea, or you'd have an elaborate idea, and then I'd find a way of making it work.
Whoa. My ideas. Wow, yeah, okay. Maybe a little bit crazy. But, you know,
A little bit
with
crazy.
craziness comes enthusiasm.
That is true. But I would scale them down just enough to make them doable.
Yeah.
And then we'd be able to do a lot more adventurous stuff, program-wise, and camps. So yeah, so it meant that the fact that I'd scaled them down meant that I knew what needed getting out and organising. So I think I thrived in that aspect. And I think I can be quite organised, so I think I quite like that.
Sometimes. In your scouting life, maybe not so much in your personal life.
Well, yeah.
I'd just turn up from work and you and the other leaders have got there before me. Everything was out on the side, and we'd just have a quick discussion as to sort of how the night was going to go, share out individual sort of tasks or roles, depending on what we're running. And then I'd just have to stand there and do the opening bit, discuss with the explorers what was going on. Used to run pretty smoothly, I think. I think it was quite good as well, because once we'd done the formal bit and got that out of the way and we were in the activities and running it, we bounced off each other quite well. And not only me and you, but also James, who's on next week. He, although he was younger than us and didn't have the same role as us, he fit in quite well, and we were almost at the point of we knew what each other was thinking or what we were thinking of doing next. I'm not saying we were magical and we can read each other's minds, but
we didn't necessarily have to discuss it, it just sort of happened.
And I think now for me it's very different because we don't work together as much anymore because we're not in the same group. But now I'm sort of turning around checking that stuff's been done, whereas before when we were back there and we worked that well, that actually I knew that the next bit was ready because you'd done it, or if you were running that bit, you knew that I would be doing the next bit and I was there waiting to go, or the thing that you needed passing to you was ready because we were quite organised and we knew how each other worked and we had very complementary leadership styles.
Yep.
I say complementary, I think we probably had the same leadership style, to be honest. It was just...
I think so, yeah. We just had different roles in that
Yeah.
style. Yeah. So I'm now up north in Preston. I think that's something that I tried to take with me, although I had to step up a bit more. So obviously in Birmingham you did a lot more of the talking, whereas I then had to do more of the talking because I was the leader in charge. I'm not sharing the role anymore.
So how have you found that? Because I think when we were sort of working together down in Birmingham, you weren't as comfortable talking in front of the young people. Obviously you needed to some weeks because I wasn't there, but
Yeah.
I think we naturally fell into that role of I was the one that sort of stood at the front leading sort of the face-to-face bit, and obviously you would interact with the kids and you would instruct them as to what to do, but less so on the formal side.
I think it's forced me to gain that experience. Starting off, yeah, I mean it was mainly me, so I had to do all the background stuff and the front stuff. So it was quite heavy to start with. I felt like I was sort of doing everything. It was a bit overwhelming to start with. But as time's gone on, I do feel like Claire is taking a lot more of that talking bit off me, which I sort of welcome because I kind of like doing more of the organising bit, getting stuff ready. So I still do most of the background stuff, although I've passed on certain bits now.
I think it works quite well because having people in those different dynamics and finding your way a little bit more, especially with the new leadership team that you've got, it allows each one of you to sort of fall back a little bit and be a lot more relaxed, which is obviously the setting that you want within Explorers. We found that very, very beneficial when we were working together, I know. Yeah.
I think in some ways I've tried to build that. I think our first experience was quite good in Birmingham. I think maybe we sort of took it for granted sometimes that we got on so well and things all went smoothly, except from the some of the background stuff like we discussed with like group at that time. But on a weekly basis with just explorers, I think it worked really well. I think that's what I'm aiming for now up north.
We definitely took it for granted because I think over the time, even when we were still working together and the leadership team started changing sort of in the background behind us, like our support team, as well as now since we've parted ways as a leadership team, I think I would probably say the same for yourself from the conversations we have, but certainly for me, I didn't realise how much we relied on sort of working together and off each other. I think I've certainly struggled quite a bit. I think I'm a lot better now. My team's finding its way. I've had to adapt quite a bit, and like you've opened up about your sort of struggles and being forced into standing at the front and taking that natural lead,
Yeah.
which I naturally do anyway, but I've been forced to do other stuff in the background that actually has not necessarily made me uncomfortable, but I have struggled with doing that because
You wouldn't necessarily have thought of it before.
yeah, not necessarily the thinking of it, because I probably did, but I never had to worry about it because I just knew it was being done. The same as obviously you knew I was doing what I was doing. It was suddenly, right, Ollie's got to do this, Ollie's got to do that, and he's also doing the stuff that he did anyway.
Yeah.
But it's evening itself out a little bit now.
I mean, it's never going to be exactly the same, but I think that's the team I'm trying to build, which I think I'm getting there now.
But before we go into that, one of the things I wanted to mention was just, although it was a very brief experience, both of us were on the district executive committee, so sort of an opening came up for sort of what I suppose now it is the youth lead. Back then it was youth commissioner, although we weren't officially in that role. It was sort of a youth representative on the board, so we joined sort of very early on, I would say, and we were supposed to be sort of there giving just a different view, I would say, on some of the decisions that were made at district, which was also very eye-opening. One, because I think the exec committee ran very, very differently compared to the groups one, which I think was partially because of how the group's exec committee was being run and how the district's one was being run. But I think it's also partially the decisions that you have to make on each level are completely different, and the setups are completely different. Like the exec committee back at the time at group had all of the section leaders, whereas obviously at district it doesn't. It has a very different range of people to what a group one would do.
Yeah, so people doing very different roles coming together.
I think although it was a very limited time on the district board, certainly we did have some successes along the way, I would say. I think we started some changes into sort of the explorer makeup and the network provisions within the district. They've sort of taken their time, but they're certainly coming into the district now, some of the changes. And I think the main one for us, although it's still happening now, but we were part of the team that signed off on the new district headquarters.
To seek all the planning commission, we were part of that team, getting all the plans, discussing what would be part of it.
And the grants, and obviously reviewing the documents and stuff and officially signing it, which was interesting. Lucky to have a very good chair that sort of led a lot of that, which took the pressure off us as trustees at the time. And it was very much we were just sort of reviewing and supporting him and signing stuff. But yeah, neither of us are involved at that level within the district anymore. But having recently been to the building that's still under construction, it is an impressive building, and hopefully it'll be used by all of the groups within the district and hopefully other youth groups outside of scouting. The things I enjoy the most is probably doing the camp stuff.
Yeah.
Although it's a lot of organising sort of the few days beforehand. Generally, most of it's sorted and shopping lists and everything, and the time of doing the last minute organising has been well set out in advance. that actually it runs really smoothly. And when I'm on camp,
You just there to have a good time.
yeah, and even the group wide camps that are sort of head up, it is a lot of stress all weekend, because if there is any issues, it's me having to make that decision,
Yep.
and I have to be available in case something happens. But it is a really enjoyable camp. I always come off them saying I'm never doing that again, and somehow
Do it again.
I end up doing it again.
Yeah, but I also think it's a chance to explore some interesting ideas. So I know when we were back in Birmingham, we had a lot of bigger ideas, but maybe didn't have the interest in people signing up. So now that I've moved up north, I've been able to experiment more with big ideas. So we recently did a camp based on the Hunger Games, which you came and helped on. But I quite enjoyed scaling it down and making it doable on a camp, but also actually linking it all back to the Hunger Games and having everything branded.
And the way we'd done it was very much a trial with your Explorer unit. It could be scaled back up into, I think, sort of the discussions we've had. We want to run it as a group wide camp for your group, and then potentially in the future, if we could do it as a district, if we've got a campsite big enough.
Yeah, you could do it across the whole campsite. But yeah, it's definitely a scalable event. But we've had a lot of other ideas as well. We've got some other ideas coming up. One based on Cluedo. So we want to hire a manor house and have like a murder mystery. Even things like spy sort of things. Setting them on missions. There's a lot of ideas we want to do. And I think that's the good thing with Explorers as well. You're able to explore these ideas and take them a lot further than what you maybe could do with younger sections.
I think there's some ideas as well that do work with the younger sections. So obviously, within our group, we were involved in Turkey and Tinsel, which is the annual group camp, which is in January. It's a really enjoyable camp. There's beavers through to explorers. The leaders dress up as Santa in inflatable costumes. We do... usually the whole weekend is themed. We've done giant board games in the past. We did life-size Monopoly, so we changed some of the venues to some of them scouting related, some of them related to Birmingham, some of them, like we did the Monopoly Money based on leaders. I mean, it's horrific having a side profile of me on it, and the kids were definitely scared when they were getting their money, but you know, there's pros and cons of scouting, everyone.
But no, I think as a designer as well, outside of scouting, I think that enabled me to bring an idea to life. So like we'd think about running a Monopoly camp, and I'd be like, oh, we can make this, this, and this, and this, and I would just go and do it, and then we would link it all together on the weekend. I think that brought the ideas to life as well. So it's not just, we're going to do this. We've actually got all the props to go with it. I think that brings the idea to life a lot more.
I mean, one of the best bits of feedback we've had on any of the camps was the Turkey and Tinsel Goes International one. Yeah. So all of the activities were based on a different country. Each meal that we did throughout the weekend, so every Turkey and Tinsel we sit down on the Saturday evening and we have literally a full cooked Christmas dinner. But every meal was based on a different country, and every young person got a passport and they had it stamped at each different activity or each different meal time. So it was like they were travelling around the world. There was a little bit of a description as well in the passport. Each of the different bedrooms that they were stopping in was based on a different country. So the feedback we got off the parents, they really liked it.
It had a unique stamp that fit into that image. So they could go home and parents could ask them about a certain page and ask, what was this page about? What was this activity? What was this food item? And it all just linked together. I think that was good. And obviously having that memento they could take home as like a memory thing. I mean, that's always something that's I think we aim for. So every time we now do a camp, I always aim to have something that they can take home to remember that experience.
I mean, this year's Turkey and Tinsel, so we're doing an Olympic-themed one. So each of the bedrooms were based on, it was named after a different Olympic year and location. And then all of the activities were sort of loosely tied into a sport. The take-home sort of gift, if you will, was a medal. You designed it based on the Paris Olympic medal.
Yeah, but rather than having the lines, it was with waves for the Sea Scout group.
So I wouldn't say it was plain sailing when you left, because it wasn't, but it worked. We survived. We're still going. And obviously you had your own experiences moving in your own life to a completely different city, and then having to continue your scouting journey elsewhere.
So when I moved up north, I wasn't sure whether I'd be able to carry on the scouting journey. I knew I wanted to still be involved with the Explorers in some capacity, but I wasn't sure whether I was going to have to become a section assistant, where I was going to be able to take on a unit. I wasn't completely sure what the situation was going to be. So just before moving, I filled in a contact form, which got me in contact with the Explorer lead at the time, which was Rick, who invited me to a meeting at his hut at the time. Yeah, we got talking, spoke about my past experience and what I was looking for. And it just so happened that the time that he was looking to open a new Explorer unit anyway, to help with capacity within the group that he was also running. So actually it was quite good timing, really. So at the time they had 3 sections. They'd moved all the older ones into one. And
The scout sections.
Scout sections, yeah. When they all came to Explorer Age, they would all move up together and become that new unit when I moved up. So actually it was quite good timing. So, and it also meant that I started the unit with 18 members, I think, to start with. But it also came with a lot of dynamics because it meant they were all quite young. So they'd all just come to Explorer Age. That came with some challenges with discipline to start with that transition from Scouts to Explorers. Obviously they try and test the boundaries, especially with a new leader. And I was learning their names, they were learning how I was as a leader. I was also learning the dynamic within the group with other leaders and the district. It was definitely a learning curve in the first few months while I settled in, and I was also trying to build a leadership team at that time.
How did you find it, I suppose, being able to open a brand new unit and you can put your own mark on it, so you're not coming into an existing unit that's ran a certain way and trying to have to fit in? Do you think it was probably easier that it was a new unit, or?
I mean, there's pros and cons to both, but I think so, yeah. I don't know how I would have fit in with another unit. Obviously, if I found a unit that fit me personally, then it would have been alright, but there wasn't a guarantee there, whereas opening a new unit meant that I could run it how I wanted to run it almost. Obviously, I had to build a team around me that wanted that same ambition, which I think got there now. Yeah, it was definitely a challenge to start with.
I think as well, you sort of started with a leadership team that loosely knew each other because there were people that were involved in the group.
Yeah.
But I don't, or from my knowledge, I don't think they'd sort of worked together before. They sort of loosely had a connection, but actually you were all experienced leaders, almost thrown in afresh together.
Yeah.
Obviously, all the young people knew the other leaders from coming to a few of your unit's meetings. I think the young people knew everyone else, but didn't know you, and I think some of them didn't actually understand the fact that actually you're an experienced leader. You weren't just someone brand new off the streets, which I think they probably thought initially.
Yeah, potentially. And also because the other 2 leaders hadn't been Explorer leaders before, mainly been Scout leaders, so that was also a challenge with them adapting to how different Explorers is to Scouting and how it's a bit more laid back when you get to Explorers. I think some are better at adapting than others. The point with the young people getting to know me, I think that was a big thing. I think it was learning that respect as well, which I think I now have a little bit. To start with, there was definitely a bit of a period where they wouldn't necessarily listen to me straight away, but they would listen to the other ones because they'd already gained the respect through them being in Scouts. So that was something I had to build over time.
Do you think the camps helped in a way? Because I know you went on a camp quite early on that was led by the district at the time, and you sort of went as a very new leader to the district. Do you think that helped with you getting to know the kids and the kids getting to know you?
I think a little bit. Obviously it enabled me to meet the other Explorer leaders as well, which helped going forward. And there was some situations on camp that I had to deal with. Some of the young people were going through friendship issues. I think me helping them with those issues, I think helped with the starting of gaining a bit of respect for them. I think the more camps we do, obviously when you're on a camp as well, they sort of see more of you rather than on a Wednesday night you only see 2 hours of you. See you running that one activity, they don't necessarily get to know you as a person, whereas on a camp they start
Michael that is the leader that stands there and tells us what to do, as opposed to Michael that is a person and puts in a lot of time into scouting, and I think they see that a lot more in a camp. I've seen that with my group and my explorers.
And actually on the camp you can be a lot more laid back as well. So I think they then start to realise how much they actually have in common with you. Like they might have the same hobbies outside of scouting. They might collect the same things. So sometimes you have stuff that you can talk about that isn't just scouting. So I think that sometimes helps as well.
Have you found the numbers in your unit, both with how many young people you've got in? Is there sort of a cap that you'd put in, and also the number of leaders? Is there sort of an ideal amount? Would you like to not necessarily recruit, but have the support of a few more leaders in a sort of official day-to-day capacity, or just the support of a few people if you need to ring them up and go, look, I need an extra person in 2 weeks because we're doing this activity? How are you finding that? What are you sort of sitting at with that in your mind?
So numbers wise, as I said, we started with a strong number. I think we peaked at 21, back down to 19 I think now. The one thing I've noticed when I've moved up north is the attendance is a lot higher. Before we went to the exam season, we were almost getting 100% every week, which is sometimes unheard of in the Explorer unit. You don't normally get them every week. But I think they were that close-knit as a group of friends outside of scouting as well. It meant that they always wanted to come to Explorers together.
One comes, all of them come.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't know how that's going to carry on with when we start getting new scouts that aren't necessarily part of that original friendship group, but I think...
I mean, that'll be new challenges for your current explorers and your current leaders, trying to integrate them, because obviously you want them to be very open to new people, but you also can't force them to be friends.
No. But hopefully, because they're all so close-knit and they've come through the group, you would hope they'll be welcome, which I think they will be.
It's interesting you say about sort of the attendance, because sort of throughout my time in Explorers, both when you were in my unit and since, we've had a decent number on the books, I would say, but we only tend to get sort of 2/3 each week, and it really varies who you can get, which can be really difficult because some of them don't tell us that they're not coming until right at the last minute, and by that point you've already brought all the stuff you need for the amount that you were expecting, or you've organised extra volunteers to come and support.
Have you seen that that's impacted camps as well?
I think so. I think it's a little bit the mixture of the young people we have. Some of them probably don't like the traditional camping.
Yeah.
So we see some of the explorers will come to like the Turkey and Tinsel camp that are explained about, because that's an indoor camp, and then we won't see them until next year's Turkey and Tinsel, despite the fact we run 2 normal under canvas camps a year. But I also think it's a very unique age range in Explorers. That obviously you mentioned exams, and it's very different mindsets. I don't know about you, certainly when I was an Explorer, I used to come to Explorers every week because it was 2 hours that, not to get out of revision, but it just helped my mind sort of reset, and it actually helped me revise better.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of my explorers that just don't come, and that's fair enough. I understand you have to prioritise your exams.
Yeah, of course.
It'll be quite interesting to see sort of when your explorers go into the main exams, which they're starting to do now as we're recording it.
A couple this year, but mainly next year.
Seeing if they sort of drop out or temporarily don't attend. But yeah, I'd like a few extra volunteers that we've recruited. To say recently, they've been involved for quite a while now. We managed to recruit someone completely new to scouting. They were in scouting as a young person, but completely new to volunteering, new to the city. So they'd moved to the city for work reasons. Just reached out on, very handy since we moved over to the new scouting membership system, that you can put out your online vacancies for volunteers. So they reached out using that platform, and actually they're a very good part of the team, very supportive, and just hope we get some more leaders, not only for explorers but for the other sections. It has been quite a struggle, I would say, particularly in my group. Yeah, so what about yourself? Obviously we have, saying, including myself, we have 4 regular leaders. We have another, our current treasurer will help out quite a bit with explorers as and when we need them, and there is a wider team that if I sort of had to beg Probably not beg, but if I had to ask them to come and help, they would. But yeah, it's 4 of us mainly. What about yourself at your unit?
So we've got a team of 3 leaders currently. So when I initially first took on the unit, we were still building that leadership team. But the Explorer lead, who is also the group lead that my unit's linked with, would often come and help because they knew that I was finding my feet again, that they were getting to know me, whereas he sort of came in as someone that they would listen to straight away, so which really helped when it started. There was also a lot of people at District who would come and help if I needed them to. Yeah, I think I've always got that team there if I did want them. I think I'm looking for at least 1 or 2 of the leaders, especially with like work cycles. So some weeks there is only 2 of us, and if you're outside the hut, I think sometimes you need more than that. It can become a bit stressful sometimes when you're trying to run.
I mean, both safety-wise and just ease of management-wise, I think.
Yeah.
Obviously, safety-wise, if you don't have enough people, you end up having to cancel the meeting. Certainly with some of the activities you do, whilst you can run it safely with a reduced number of adults, it can be quite demanding and challenging on yourself, depending on your sort of share of responsibility with your other leaders that you've got.
Yeah, it depends on how you share that as well. In terms of max numbers, I think we're sort of around that. I probably would take maybe a few more on, but if I was going to start pushing towards 25, 30 young people, I'd need at least 4 or 5 maybe, if you're then going out and about. It's a difficult age to work with really, because as much as you can leave them to it, sometimes you need a bigger leadership team to be able to run more adventurous stuff, because you need people in loads of different places at once sometimes. It can be a challenge in that regard as well. So obviously we both have our Explorer lead roles, but we also both have other responsibilities outside of us. You've taken on the group lead volunteer role.
Yeah, very interesting route for me to go down. The previous chair and the previous group scout leader at the time stood down at the same time. I'd applied for the group scout leader role, as it was called. Took it on jointly with another leader within our group. It's had its challenges over the past couple of years. Obviously the roles changed quite a lot as part of that. Sort of took it over as the changes were coming in centrally from national headquarters in terms of the changes of roles, the changes from exec committees to trustee boards. And we sort of fast-tracked that into our group. In hindsight, was needed. At the time, it was quite challenging because it was a lot of changes all in one go. It was the sort of line manager of the group changed, as well as the core setup of everything in the group, which maybe wasn't the best idea, but it worked. And I think it was necessary to bring the changes in at the time when we did.
Would you say that all the leaders were on board with those changes?
I think it just needed explaining slightly differently to the way that it had been explained. As a organisation, we are very sort of stuck in that the old way of how we used to do it, and obviously it's turned it very corporate now, which has its pros and cons. But I think actually getting round to it's for the betterment of Scouts, it's to help sort of advance us, to be able to get people in from outside. It does help, and I think a lot of people are for the changes that we brought in now, as well as some of the new changes and new support structures that we brought in locally as a group. I would say generally leader-wise, we have very good support as the group lead volunteers. We also brought in a completely fresh trustee board at the time. So we changed from the exec committee, which featured the chair, the secretary, the treasurer, myself as the group lead, and then all of the section leaders, or team leads as they're now known. We went on to the new trustee board way, which is very much sort of, it's to move the focus to governance rather than just general decision making.
Yeah, it separates the
two sides, yeah. Which I think from talking to the section leaders has helped quite a bit, because it's taken that responsibility off them. Obviously they still want to be in the know, and decisions that are made operationally for the group they want to be involved in still, good to have regular meetings with them so that we're making the right decisions as leads. But then also having a trustee board that initially was completely separate from the operational side. So naturally, as you get strains on not having enough volunteers, and obviously we don't have the magic tree that volunteers grow on, sort of blur the lines slightly as you need help from people on the trustee board on the operational side and vice versa. But I think we've got a very, very strong team. We complement each other quite well. We also hold each other to account very well. And although we quite often have differing opinions, we make sure everyone's heard, everything's discussed properly, which I think we didn't necessarily used to have before some of the changes we brought in. There's just a lot of challenges, the operational side in supporting leaders, and because there's not enough leaders to support them. And it's certainly for our group, we're very much conscious of the fact that it only needs one leader in each section to step away, and that section is then in crisis and might not be able to run, which is quite difficult. And I think it's probably the same for most groups.
I know just after I left there was problems with the meeting place. You had to change location for a period of time. How did that go?
Yeah, so we had to move away from our own Scout HQ, which we own the building of, for safety reasons. Not particularly with the building, but to do with the site that we were on. So luckily our landlord that was very accommodating at very short notice, and we managed to get a long-term use of the local hall, which very luckily was about a 30-second walk from our Scout HQ. But it also meant that we could focus a lot of our energy on, one, making the site safe, and two, doing a lot of improvements. We've literally in recent weeks, this month, we moved back to our Scout headquarters, which obviously a lot of the young people, so all of the beavers and most of the cubs, have never been there before, because we've always been at the local hall. The feedback from the team leads in them sections, it's been unique and actually quite nice to see the smile on the kids' faces that they're at a completely new venue. We've had very good feedback from the neighbours that we've actually missed having you guys down here and seeing the impact that you have on the local community. But yeah, we've had a lot of success. We've had quite a lot of grant funding for different bits. It's a very, very old building, over 60 years old, wooden buildings are naturally starting to show its age, as well as a garage that's showing its age. But
so what sort of changes have you been able to make in that time period?
So we've managed to have a completely new roof. We've got a new sort of dry shelter area, which means we can offer new activities to the young people. It's a lot more inviting for parents and members of the public that come down, because we hold, obviously, our AGM. We have representatives from local organisations attend and stuff like that. Since sort of taking over, we've implemented quite a big fundraising plan. So when you were involved in the group, we started doing Santa's sleigh at the time, where it was more Santa's shed the first year we did it, which there was a scout group in a different county that we had connections with that very kindly allowed us to use their Santa's grotto. We used that very successfully, and then we drew on our Sea Scout links, and we did Santa's speedboat the following 2 years, and it's sort of blown up in size.
Links to social media as well. Put all your routes out beforehand, don't you? And you have your live location.
Yeah, so that was quite a new thing, particularly for this year. So we've got sort of online donations, which has been really successful, meaning we can get a lot of money back from gift aid as well. And we also got the live Track Santa now, and quite often we were getting almost 5,000 views a night, and it was just incredible, turning corners. And literally, I think one of the, not this year, last year, we turned the one corner, and outside of school, the entire road probably had close to 1,000 people stood on one corner. It was breathtaking. That's the only way I can describe it.
It just shows you the power of social media, doesn't it?
It does, and that's something we're trying to push quite a bit with our group, trying to look at the examples set by other groups and other districts, and actually, I think as an organisation, we need to realise the power of social media and how it can be used, obviously appropriately with scouting, which is something you've taken on, I know, and you're focusing on as an additional role to your Explorer role. Just explain a little bit more about that.
So when we originally took over the unit in Birmingham, we set up a Facebook and Instagram page, which we're obviously continuing with. With experimenting with that, it helped not only with getting our name out there, making people aware of what we're doing and showing the local community and everyone else.
Yeah, so our units page has become probably one of the most active in Birmingham, I'd say. So at the minute we post almost every week when we do activities, and it's quite good because it means parents and family members can see actually what the Explorers are getting up to. It's helped us make new connections with other Explorer units. It means the young people can look back and sort of see what they've got up to over the years in Explorers. And I know certainly for other groups, it's been very, very beneficial with the volunteering side. So with your own group, I know you've had a lot of success with that.
Yeah. So going back in the timeline a little bit. So when I originally moved up north and I set up my own unit, because of the successes I'd seen with the unit in Birmingham, I then set up a page for the new unit, and I've slowly been building that. But it was sort of a new thing in my area. No one really had an online presence. But I think it very quickly got the attention of people in the area at district level, because they were able to see what was going on and they could see the impact it was making. And I think it also sort of creates a time capsule almost. I think looking back when I was in Explorers, I sort of wish there was more pictures taken that I could look back on. Obviously you have the memories of when you're in Explorers, but actually a lot of those things are lost because there wasn't anyone taking pictures or capturing those moments, whereas I wish someone did. So I think being able to do that and post it online is not only good for the young people to look back on in the future, but as we said, it enables us to get our name out there, encourage more people to join scouting, show people the benefits it's having on the young people and adults as well. Once that started to get going, the Explorer lead at the time, obviously we're doing all these district camps, and he asked me whether I wanted to do some media at one of these events, which I did, and that sort of revitalised the Explorer page at the time. The District Explorers had a Facebook page and an Instagram page, but it hadn't been used in a few years. Back then it was probably averaging 8, maybe 9 likes a post, which is still good. Obviously since taking it on and we recently put up that first camp, it sort of blew up overnight. I mean, the first post we put out I think got 30 odd likes, which is 5x what it was doing before, and just looking at the engagement and everything, it's made a big impact. But also, as you say, with recruitment, because you've already got the name out there and people can see what we're doing in the local area, it means that people can get in contact with you a lot quicker and be like, actually, I want to get involved with this. And it makes finding new leaders and also increase young people numbers within the area a lot easier as well.
Have you found that the young people have been getting involved with the media and actually taking an interest in it?
Yeah, so I think to start with, obviously, it was a bit of a new concept to them. But I have found that actually on the last couple of events, because I used to take obviously my normal camera and GoPros and things, but a lot of my explorers now will ask me to take the GoPros off me, and they'll just record their own stuff and bring it back to me, which is actually really good. So they've started recording their own stuff. They're actively trying to participate and they want to be interviewed with stuff. I think it helps that a lot of them have their own GoPros and things. They're obviously recording their own stuff outside of scouting, and they kind of want to actually be able to document what they're doing within scouting as well.
I'm trying to integrate it a lot more into my group and within the district, trying to push it to sort of the other group lead volunteers. What would you say to other volunteers in scouting in general to try and encourage them and sort of see? I think a lot of people understand the power of media, but actually how easy it can be, because you don't need the sort of big cameras and
No,
GoPros and kit that you've got, although it's very beneficial to actually on a day-to-day basis when you're at a meeting, it can be quite simple and quite quick to do. What would you say to encourage other people to start looking at the media side of scouting?
I mean, as much as I have all this equipment, I only really use it on big events. On the weekly nights, I do just take pictures on my phone. It doesn't need to be overly complicated. You're just showing people what you get up to and getting the word out there. It doesn't need to be professional. It doesn't need to be the best quality pictures. It just needs to show people what you're doing, and that will encourage more people to get involved. It doesn't need to be overthought about. I'd also say that the numbers sort of show themselves. I mean, if you look at the engagement we're now getting on district pages and unit pages, I mean, it's getting bigger and bigger as time goes on, and it means that it's easier to fundraise. It's easier for local communities or businesses to see what we're doing and get involved. It just makes a lot of things easier.
I know you've got a jamboree coming up.
Yeah.
And you've been quite successful with some of the grants. Do you think it's helped with sort of other organisations and charities and the businesses that are handing these grants out? Has it helped them actually see what your cause is and what you do as a group, as a charity sort of thing?
I think so, because normally you'd put in a grant application and a lot of these companies will just have to assume you're spending on things and doing those activities, whereas for us, we can almost go, well, you've given us this money and you can see the evidence. It's right there in front of you. You know, we've got the videos of us using the kit that we bought, using your money. We've been able to offer this experience to these young people because of you, and yeah, I think it does help.
I mean, it's similar to, as I've already touched upon, the Santa's Sleigh fundraising in my group. So. The first year we did it, we had a local company sponsor us for a load of high vises, which is obviously a core safety element of the fundraising, particularly as we were sort of going around the streets at night. And in return, their name was put on the back of the high vises, and there's quite a lot of exposure on social media from the pictures. Yeah. And then in subsequent years, so last year, we actually, before we'd even gone out on any of the routes, we'd already zeroed our total spend because local businesses had donated to us, and we'd managed to invest quite a bit of money into kit that we'll use in the future, both for fundraising and for other activities that had been completely covered before we'd even started the fundraising process. Part of that was linking it back to media, and actually we could help these local businesses that are quite small get exposure. Obviously within Scouts it's quite a big audience that you're pushing out to, not only other Scout groups but young people and parents that might be following your account.
Yeah, and as you say, if you're streaming live like you were with the Santa's Sleigh with to potentially 5,000 people at one point, you've then got something else to offer those companies, because you'd be like, well, if you sponsor us, then your name will be in front of this many people. So yeah, I think it benefits both scouting and local people, and being able to it just helps the whole ecosystem work together.
So I hope you've enjoyed listening to this pilot episode and getting to know a little bit more about us and our journeys. Hopefully it's been a little bit informative for you, open your mind to different things. I know certainly listening to some of your stories since moving up here, it's opened my mind a little bit. In the next episode, we speak to James, who was one of the section assistants with us in Explorers. He also had some other roles in Birmingham, which we speak about, as well as coming back into scouting after a period of time off. And we chat about where he is now, some of his experiences and some of the challenges, and actually how it's quite similar to the way we run things, and actually his specific location, geography wise, how it's different to me in Birmingham and yourself up here.
Yeah.
So we will see you next time. If you think you could share your experiences with ourselves and with other listeners, please do get in contact and email scoutersanonymouspodcast@gmail.com.